Hello. Welcome to the Scrum Masters Elite_UK channel. Today we're taking a look at the story of Brodie Retallick and the possibility of his return to the New Zealand National Rugby Union team. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow more interesting sports stories.
When thinking about the possibility of Brodie Retallick returning to wear the All Blacks jersey under the new head coach Dave Rennie, what strikes me most is not just a tactical decision made by a team. It is a deeper story about a career, about the desire to contribute, and about how an athlete maintains their value over time. From a personal perspective, I've always felt that stories like this carry a very special meaning. Professional sport is often associated with concepts such as form, age, selection policy, and generational cycles. But sometimes, behind these seemingly technical ideas lie deeply human questions. How long can an athlete truly contribute? What keeps them fighting after they have already reached the peak? And what the real standard is for judging a person's value. In this story, there is one detail that impressed me in particular. It comes from a moment described by Eddie Jones when he watched a match of Kobelco Kobe Steelers in the Japan Rugby League One competition. The match had almost already been decided with a very large score difference. It was the kind of situation many people might consider no longer important. But in the final seconds, Retallick still sprinted nearly half the field just to reach out and touch the opponent's ankle.
I imagine that moment. A player who has won many titles, who has played at the highest level in the world, now playing in a league far from home, and the match is essentially already over. In that situation, running another 50 meters to stop a play that seemed almost meaningless was not something he had to do. Yet he still did it. That small detail made me think a lot. In sport, people often talk about talent. But if we look closely, what truly separates great athletes from the rest is often moments like that. These are actions not meant to impress the crowd, not meant to create highlight clips, but simply because their inner standard does not allow them to do any less. Perhaps that is also why the All Blacks are always considered one of the teams with the most unique sporting cultures in the world. They do not build their team only through tactics or physical strength, but also through extremely high standards of attitude. A player is considered a true All Black not only because of skill, but because of how they approach every phase of play and every training session. When I heard Eddie Jones say that Retallick still maintains those standards, I felt that might be the greatest compliment an athlete can receive. Not because he scores a lot of points, not because he is famous, but because he still plays as if every moment matters. However, the story also raises another question that made me reflect: New Zealand's player selection policy. Under the current rules, players who play overseas are generally not selected for the national team. This policy has existed for many years as a way to protect the domestic rugby system.
I can understand the logic behind it. If the best players all go overseas and are still selected for the national team, the domestic competition could weaken. The youth development system might also lose motivation. From a management perspective, it is a way to keep New Zealand rugby strong at its foundation. But from a personal point of view, the question I ask myself is this: in some special cases, should those rules be more flexible? A player like Retallick has given so much to the national team. He is not just a great athlete, but also a symbol of a generation. If he is still performing at a high level, should playing in Japan become an absolute barrier? I don't have a definitive answer, but I do think this is a fascinating debate in modern sport: how to balance the system and the individual. Another detail that made me think was that Retallick himself once said his time with the national team might already be over. When I heard that, I sensed a certain calmness in his words. Many athletes struggle to accept that a major chapter of their career has ended. But sometimes, a person's maturity is shown in knowing when it is time to move into the next phase of life. Perhaps playing in Japan offers him a different kind of balance, less pressure, a new environment, and the chance to enjoy rugby in a different way. However, what makes this story special is that people within the professional rugby world still see his value. When a coach like Eddie Jones publicly says that a player is too good to ignore, it shows that his performances are still truly impressive. I think this offers a very interesting lesson for fans.
In the age of social media, we often evaluate an athlete's career through very simple milestones, whether they are still in the national team, whether they still play in major competitions. But the true value of an athlete sometimes lies in less visible things: how they train, how they perform in matches that receive little media attention, and how they maintain their competitive spirit over many years. Retallick's story reminds me that the peak of sport is not only the moment of lifting a trophy. The peak also lies in the ability to maintain high standards even when the spotlight is no longer shining directly on you. For me personally, the biggest lesson from this story is about professionalism. In any field, there are times when we work while everyone is watching us. But there are also many moments when we work while no one is paying attention. It is in those moments that a person's true standards become visible. If a player still sprints at full speed in the final play of a match that has long been decided, that says a lot about who they are. For fans, stories like this help us see sport from a deeper perspective. Sport is not only about results or standings. It is also about stories of character, perseverance, and how people face the passage of time.
And for athletes themselves, this story is also a reminder that a career does not always follow a straight line. There are periods of glory, periods of transition, and sometimes chapters that seem closed can unexpectedly open again. If Retallick truly returns to the New Zealand national team in the future, it will certainly be a beautiful story. But even if that never happens, I think his legacy is already very clear. An athlete is remembered not only for the number of matches or trophies, but also for the way they play. And if there is one image I would keep from this story, it would not be the greatest moments of glory. It would be the image of a 34-year-old player still running 50 meters in the final minute of a match that had long been decided. To me, that is the spirit of sport. And perhaps it is also a spirit that each of us can learn from in our own lives.
Brodie Retallick reminds us that the true spirit of sport lies in the standards an athlete holds for themselves in every moment.